Good morning. Okay, so we're up to Siman Shin Chof Ches Seif Mem Hey. Interesting things today. Leichashim al Nechashim v'akrabim. You're allowed to make incantations against Nechashim v'akrabim, snakes and scorpions, b'shul shelo yaziku, they shouldn't harm you on Shabbos. Ve'ein bekach mishum tzeda. And even though the animals are frozen in their place because of your words, that's not considered seder. Says Mishnah Bura, ve'ein bekach mishum seder kuf mem gimel va'af al gav al yedei halacha she'en yochel lozuz m'koimei ad shenuchel letov. So even though the animal is frozen and therefore you're able to easily just take it, mikol mokum mutzah de'ein zet seder tivis. It's not a natural type of seder. Va'af al gav de paskin b'simen shin tez zayin siv zayin da'afilu lots of lehedje mutzah kadesh lishchen. Even though you're allowed to trap one of these dangerous animals so that it shouldn't bite you. Here we're talking about a situation where there is only a distant chashash, and therefore it's not particular grave concern. The animal is not running after you. Klal.
What's it going to do with?
It's a type of refuah, I suppose. It could, yeah. Vayin le'el b'simen shin vav sif zayin mishnah bura sham. Okay. Mem Vav. Noisnin Kli al Gabi Ha'ayin. You're allowed to put a vessel on top of your eye, lahoker, to sort of let it cool down. Imagine you've got like a bruised eye or black eye, and you want to put a spoon or a can of Coke or something on it in order to cool it down. That's allowed. For Hushia Kli Hanitl B'Shabbos, so long as the actual Kli itself is not muksa. So for example, you've got a bruise, you're allowed to take a cold can of Coke and just hold it against it. That will go. Oh, so we're going to come to ice in a second. Says the Mishnah Bura, lahaker, pirush, misha chosh be'enoi. Someone's got an eye infection or an eye ache. Noisnim a kli matchas la'ayin. You can put a metal kli on the iron, kadei lekarer, so it cools down. V'uadin shemakiven betabas, so to a ring or bekli es ayin, kadei shelo yispashet hanefach, so that the swelling won't grow. It will it will calm down the swelling. V'kos v'chaya adam v'uadin the mutter lidchik besakin chabura kadei shelo yispashet. You can press with a knife against the chabura so that it won't spread, it won't enlarge. So if you take a look at where is it? 125, yeah, omnom. Losuch shemen al gabe nafichas shamaka kosav le'el shemuch shenasa l'shem refuah v'asa. Okay, that's what we said previously. Ulegabe hanochas kerach al maka. So that's what you were saying. To put some ice on a bruise, or you've knocked yourself and you want to make sure that the swelling goes down. Das haganu shlomo zalman arbach shekiven she'in derech lasos zois alidei samamonim mutar lasos kein. It's allowed because you're not using any medication. It's just ice on a bruising. V'chein hayre. And he also paskened that you're allowed to put that knocked limb in water. It's not medicinal. You're not healing it. It's just soothing it. You're allowed to put a piece of ice on a wound. It just sort of stems the swelling, and therefore it's allowed. Okay, good, useful to know. We shouldn't know of these things, but if it does happen, take a bag of peas from the freezer or some ice or whatever. That's allowed on Shabbos. Okay, Mem Zayin. If a bone dislocates on Shabbos, you're allowed to put it back. Says the Mishnah Bura, Kuf Mem Hey, sheyotzim m'koyma hamogen avrom cholik al zeh. Usvirle the dafke etzem hameshavim muz lachzir. Only a broken bone can be put back. Kedis b'gemara. Avol etzem manishmet m'koyma also lachzir, but a dislocated bone cannot. Dafilu shavshev harbe betzoinin. Also, even to rub it with cold is not allowed. Kedis b'sif lamed v'chol, because that's refuah. V'kolshkein chazara, and certainly putting the bone back in its socket. V'tiku kamachrin. However, many achronim dispute this. Mikol Malkamari. Certainly to get a non-Jewish person to do it is allowed. Shulchan Aruch says shitim chelik al hamogen avram. For cost of the chol sheyosim koyim legamrei, if it's properly dislocated, shekorin oish gelinkt. Okay, yeah, you've heard it. Oiskeling, so it's taken out. Okay, it says dislocated. Choshev sakonas eva, that is already category 2, right? Sakonas eva, It might break if it doesn't put back in the right place. And therefore even Yisrael can do it. It hasn't fully come out. If it could, become worse and become more aggravated, then it would certainly be allowed. Okay, mem ches. So if a person has a cut and that he's bleeding, you can't put a beged on it because it's going to color the beged. Let's just finish on that till then. At the end of the day, it's ruining the beged, which is potted. It's not chayiv. It's not ideal. Or beged odoim pshita also, because that's going to sort of enhance the redness of a red cloth. You're going to enhance the redness. Now, however, look at 130, first two lines. If you put a tissue or napkin or something, and that's what we're going to see in a minute. It's considered derech ibud. You're not really particular about this napkin or this tissue, and therefore, if you've got a cut and you want to stem the wound, that would be okay. So let's take a look. Hang on a second. That's what I meant, not derech ibud. Derech lichluch is considered dirtying the beged, and therefore we're not worried. And again, the schita, Eli, would only be a problem if you want the thing to, if you spilt your whiskey and there's a chashash of that could be different. But if the dam, you're not particularly worried about that. If kibbutz, we said if it's water, then you might launder the beged. But if this is dam, you're not particularly worried about that. Okay, let's carry on. I'm back in the mechaber, the top. Now, what you've got to be careful about is not to press too hard, because then you're extracting blood from the wound. And therefore the best thing to do is wash it with water, or even with wine, to get rid of the blood from the wound. You should take a cobweb, I've never heard of this before, then you take some sort of bandage and you wrap it around it. So let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Kuf Mem Zayin v'also lahitzi dam. Now, who inyan b'fnei alza? This is a separate problem. Dahainu she'also litchik biyodov al hamaka. You can't press too hard on the wound k'dei lahitzi dam. Or you put something around it. So just careful when you stem the wound, you don't do it too hard. But if you look at 133, he says, because that is the medical advice, I think. You're meant to sort of stem the wound by containing it, by pressing on it. So he says, in 133, with sort of more gently, but even she'ena begedes psik reisha sheyotzadam das konim zakaretz shemuta. So you can definitely take a tissue or take a handkerchief, a napkin, and press it on the wound, but not too hard, where it's a psik reisha that you're doing it so hard that inevitably blood's going to come out. But you can do it firmly, but in a way that will stem the wound. That's definitely allowed. Okay. But because pressing it too hard, the blood will come out. Because that's part of the issa of chayvel, which is an av melacha. V'yesh sovereign back in the Mishnah Berurah. Shedu adin in maniach al hamaka dova shemoishech lecha v'dam kagoin tzuk zalb v'chuyetzi b'zeh. So he says number 3 is min mashicha, some sort of ointment. It sort of extracts the blood, whatever that is. Gam kein av melacha deraisa kimishin ischaven azeh. The purpose of putting on this ointment is to extract the dam. And therefore that's a problem of chayvel. V'al kol ponim os isur bevada yesh. Ham dabek sheretz aluka. I think that's good. That's a leech. He says piviko eggline aluka. So leeches shetimtzoi stam, that they suck out the blood. But sadra mogen avram the yesh chiyuv bezeh, because of chayvel. V'al kein also bechol ze lekula al melases al dei Yisrael lechol she'en b'sakana el al dei ein Yehudi. If that is needed, you can get a non-Jewish person to do that. Hamoitzeitz dam befiv. If you suck some blood out of a wound, min hachabura chayev, again because it's chayvel. V'lochein also limtzes dam sheben hashinaim. You shouldn't try and actively suck out, if you've got a gum bleed or something like that, to actively suck out and then cause more blood to come out. That is not allowed.
To do the nosebleed.
Yes, again, you take a napkin or a tissue and you try and stem it, but then not do it in a way that it's going to pressure and more blood to come out. You just try and contain it. Then that would be okay, like we said. Kuf mem ches lochein yesh at chilas hasiv koi kuf mem tes v'yesh oimrim that you take this cobweb and then you wrap it with a bandage. But beis yosef mefagvik b'zeh mishum demerape because that's already medicinal, it's healing. V'lohochi kozuz rak b'shem yesh oimrim. That's why he brings in the shem yesh oimrim. Aval be'eli rabbi b'shem al busha yontav v'chem b'tesefes Shabbos mitzaded lahokel. It's allowed to do this. So in short, if a person has a wound on Shabbos, not to do something which is going to cause, in the way of psikresha, the blood to come out further, but you're allowed to take a napkin or something, a bandage, some material, to hold on to the wound in a way that it will contain it, it will stem it, but not too firmly. And putting ice on a wound, as we said, to make the swelling go down, or to prevent it swelling up too much is also allowed, according to Shlomo Zalman. Or putting it in water, things like that, that's not considered refuah, that's allowed. Memtes. Also, losum pasila b'fi tabas. A person is not allowed to put some material b'fi tabas on the rectum. Kederech shenagim lasis l'mishu also. If a person is constipated and sometimes you're putting some material there that could agitate and get things moving, that's not allowed. Elim kein yosim oso b'shin, unless you do it with a shinui sheyechazenu b'shtei etzba'osov v'yanechena b'nachas. That means we've had this before, that you can sort of move around and just agitate and manipulate the avarim there, so that the sinews, in order that can get some movement going. That's allowed, but putting this pasila there is not. Says in the Mishnah Berurah Kuf Nun, Kol Shekain to also losum krista afshe huchna me esmol. Two, he says krusna. He says is a chaykin. That is an enema. So if you take some medication in order to get a bowel movement, he says is osa. V'zeh osa afila de shinui. K'zeh mishum shchika samamonim, because it's the classic refuah, and therefore it's caught by shchika samamonim. Im loy b'choyle af she'im b'sakon, unless you are a category 4 chole af she'im b'sakona. Category 3. Category 4. Even if you're a chole who hasn't got any sakona. Category 3, right? Chole she'im b'sakona, or kamesh kozav v'sif yud zayin. To oz mutal de shinui. Yeah, to remember. Category 1, Pikuach Nefesh, do, you got whatever you do, get on with it. Category 2, we said you can even do a drabonon. Category 3, we said, is Chelesh Emisakona, who's Nechlash Kol Gufay, or is bedbound, or hospital patient. So then you can tell a non-Jewish person to do a deraisa, and for you, Yisrael, you can do a drabon al de shinui. So that's what he's saying now. It's because if a Chelesh Emisakona, the ozmut al de shinui. And this, putting this psila, whatever, is considered a shinui, and therefore it would be allowed. So, but just be careful, you don't do a malacha d'oraisa. And to put oil and water, some sort of medical concoction, should not be done. Because that's not a shinui. Put it in some sort of a cleave, and if you can get a non-Jewish person to do it, that's certainly preferred. Pasila, ha'asuya mechele v'beris. So this pasila is made out of fats or beris, or minaya or shiari dvarim, other materials. The tam isur. What is the problem? The problem is mishum da'iri the mamash misham kama pa'amim lahachnis v'lahitzi. You're sort of agitating and you're putting it in and out of the opening. Karav levada shiyashi haseh sham. It's inevitable that you're going to remove some hair. U'kamoi b'tzroi le'el b'siman shin yud beis siv zayin, which is a problem on Shabbos. V'ayim be'alocha. But what you can do is just move around the tendons over there. That helps the movement. But nachas v'lo yavar adezeh hasharas nimin, because that's not going to cause hair to be dislodged. Kos v'chay odem d'chol zeh im hoya psila asuya me'erev Shabbos. This concoction and material was made on Erev Shabbos. Avalazes b'Shabbos apsila nal, but to actually make it on Shabbos, afilu hu oisa minaya shekerich oisa makshe oisa. Even if you make it and it's sort of hardening it, yesh be'isa deraisa mishum makapatish. You're making this thing unless there's a pikuach nefesh situation. To make some sort of chaticha from a lefes, from a vegetable, and therefore that would be okay. So what comes out of that's the end of a very long simon on refuah. As I've said, the summary, if you like, is you've got the 5 categories: pikuach nefesh, Harizem Shubach, get on with it. We should know such a situation. Everyone should be well. But Harizem Shubach, you just don't delay, and the quickest way of dealing with the problem is the best thing to do. Vahashayel, we said, or Hanishal, Harizem Muguna. Then we had category 2. Again, that's Sakonis Eva. Again, if it could lead to sakonis sofik pikuach navesh, then for sure you have to deal with it. If it's sakonis eva, we say Yisrael can even do a drabanan, and certainly a Nein Yehudi can do a deraisa. Category 3 is a chayla she'em b'sakona, which is either a bed-bound patient, or you should be in bed, or nechlash kol gufa, his whole body feels weak or ill, or a hospital patient. Then you can get a non-Jewish person to do a deraisa, which is useful to know. For example, the person is in bed, he's got bad flu, and he needs some paracetamol. He's allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to go to the pharmacy to get, or you to put on the kettle for you, even to do the deraisa. For Yisrael himself, the different opinions of the Mechaber, he concluded, and the person can conclude that you can do a drabonim with a shinui. Category 4 is michush ba'alma and things like that. So then you can get a guy to do a drabonim. Shvus to shvus is called. And then the 5th category is a person who's just got a bit of a sore throat, a very light headache or things like that, and that you can't take any refuah, but you can have Michael Briam, you can have a hot bowl of chicken soup, you can have whiskey or something like that, but hot water bottles and things like that, that's also allowed, so long as it's not mukach that you're doing it l'shum refuah. So if it's a boiling hot day, then it's going to be a problem. And in terms of what we said today, if you've got a bruise, stemming it, either by putting a cold metal implement there, or ice or things like that, would be allowed, or soaking in water would also be allowed. It should all be well, Miss Hashem.